Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, December 15th, 2020. I'm your host, Tristan. I create YouTube channel Step Back History, and Tristan won't shut up. Yes, I'm about to just answer Betty's question, who just asked this in the stream. Bruh, how often do I stream? I stream 3 days a week. I stream on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. On Mondays, I do the Monday Discourse with Mia Mulder. It goes from 12 until 2, which that's Eastern time. And that is called the Monday Discourse. We have a lot of fun. It's a great show. I think, obviously, it's getting very well received because it's like the most popular stream that I do of the week now. Everyone's a real big fan of the Tristan and Mia show, or the Mia Mulder featuring a side Tristan. Mia Mulder brings out the crowds. We all know this. And then Tuesday nights, what you're watching right now, from 7 to 9, I do Step Back Tonight, which is a show that I do, where I just kind of hang out with y'all, chill, enjoy the vibes, those kinds of things. And then on Fridays from noon till 2, on Fridays from noon till 2, I do the Reactor, where people send me links and I react. I go by he, him pronouns, and you can find my work at either stepbackhistory.com or tristanwon'tshutup.com. And if you are on Twitch right now and you have Amazon Prime, I would highly, highly suggest that you use your free Amazon Prime or Twitch Prime subscription that you get for that every single month. It is something you don't pay extra for. It's completely free. And if you don't use it, Jeff Bezos gets to keep your money. So you might as well use it on some Twitch creator that you like. I suggest you use it on any Twitch creator. If you choose Step Back, I'll be grateful, but I want to just make sure that, it's being used. As for content to look forward to, or content to check out and look forward to, my latest video on Step Back is about Japan and the Japanese left and the sort of reconstruction in the year following World War II. Very fun. People seem to be liking it quite a bit. And the next video on Step Back should be coming out on December 28th. That's the hope. And it's going to be about... the militarization, the use of the Vietnam War to gain sort of like an anti-immigrant. It's about this incident that occurred in Texas in 1981, I want to say, that where the Ku Klux Klan used a group of angry white fishermen who are angry at Vietnamese refugees to basically radicalize white people into racists, or into like organized racism, I guess I should say. And also talks a bit about, hopefully I'll be able to bring it back and talk about some stuff that's been going on here in Canada on the East Coast. That's going to be the next video. I know it's a real bummer for right after the Christmas season, but we'll see where that goes. And then my next, was reading about it today, so hopefully it could even get it out earlier. Who knows? Next, I also have recently released on Tristan Won't Shut Up. I thought you already talked about that in a vid. It was part of one of my videos. Casey Explosion retweeted your art. That's awesome. I already talked about this in the first video in the series, but I'm going to go more into what happened. Because essentially I feel like in the first video in that series I was summarizing a bit too much of information. So I decided to take the incident with the Vietnamese shrimpers and the incident with the Greensboro massacre, and I'm going to try and I'm going to make videos about each of those. Those are going to be my next two videos, so that you get a little bit more about what happened there and more of the story. Because otherwise I think I was too vague in the first video about pretty important incidents in the history of the white power movement. And now that I know that this series is doing really well and taking off, I feel like I need to revisit them a little bit before I move onwards. Anyways, the latest Tristan Won't Shut Up video is about index funds and investment, and why socialism is good at those things, and why capitalism is bad, as many of my videos are on Tristan Won't Shut Up. And my next video on that channel is going to be about Star Trek. I'm working on it. I don't know when it's going to come out because, I want to write a Cold War script first. So I'm working on the Cold War script right now, but then when that's done, I'm going to get into the next Tristan Won't Shut Up video, and I don't know. I'm going to do the Star Trek thing. Wasn't Louis Beam involved in both? Louis Beam was involved in... he was involved in the Vietnamese one. I don't know if he was involved in the Greensboro one. How do I keep from succumbing to misanthropy? Star Trek, mostly. I always just try to keep my mind open to, the old thing that Mr. Rogers said, whenever things are bad, always look at the people who... Always keep your eyes open for the people who are helping. Because you don't want to forget that those people are always there. And so, that's one way. I think that the world's in a very, very, it's in a very, very sorry state, but there are a lot of people out there who are trying to solve that. I thought it was ironic about that that there aren't people who left Vietnam because the Viet Cong were winning, likely to be conservative. Yeah, they were. A lot of the Vietnamese refugees were people who helped American soldiers in some fashion or another. And when South Vietnam lost the war, they were afraid that they would suffer some sort of repercussions for it. So, did you hear about the NHL player getting owned by Canadian Communist Party on Twitter? No, I did not. All right, next thing I need to talk about is if you want to submit content for these streams, I'm going to give you a link to a Google form that you can check out. And this form, you fill it out, you ask some questions. I guarantee you I'm not going to be able to get to it in this stream, but what you are doing is keeping new content always available. Currently, there's a bit of a backlog of about, I think, like 50 or something questions. But hey, it's a thing. It's a thing that you can do. That's the real meaning of Christmas. Trying to find the location of it for me right now, so that I can open up the back end. Okay. And the last thing I want to say is, God damn, where is it? Ah, here we go. Found it. Okay, the next thing I want to say is that this channel has gotten a lot of new faces added to it. I just passed 79,000 subscribers just a few minutes ago, or maybe an hour or two ago. So I now have 79,000 subscribers. Woohoo! But it also means that there have been a lot of new subscribers in the last few weeks. So if this is your first time watching this stream, I want you to please make yourself known, and please say hello in the chats, because there's a vibrant, growing community there that I would love to see more people join up with. So cheers to that. I want to know what the president's plane looked like in the 1970s, so I googled Ford's Air Force One, and I got a load of pictures of Harrison Ford from the movie Air Force One. That's how insignificant President Ford was. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Well, so there we are. That's the opening spiel. I got all my stuff out of the way, so now we can just chill. While I scroll past questions for Mia Mulder. Here we go. How's everyone's evening going? How's everyone's day going? I have, today was one I smoked a bunch of weed last night, and then I slept better than I have in a very long time. I got almost 9 hours of sleep, which is absolutely unheard of for me. And so I feel amazing. And I got my work that I wanted to do today finished early, and I feel very good. Very happy to do streaming tonight. Why are you considering making a video about why Cenk Uygur sucks if you hate drama? I think you're big enough that there's a non-zero chance of it getting back to him. I mean, I don't think so, but I think that we definitely need to have a, like, I don't know if I'm gonna like frame it as like Cenk Uygur sucks, he bad. That's not exactly. I think that I'm gonna talk about the Young Turks and like unionization and labor practices and some other unfortunate things about him and why should be concerned that, like, progressive icons aren't always necessarily on your side. For anything, the fact that like somebody who everyone considers a progressive icon fighting against his staff unionizing says a lot about power relations and sort of material interests and things like that. So at the very least, that's something cool to talk about. And all the bullshit about like naming his organization after the people who did the Armenian genocide is also pretty fucked up. And the only reason I try not to talk about drama. Like, I don't particularly care if I want to say something that's important. The main thing is that I got in shit because every time I mentioned my feelings about one Vosh and one shoe on head, I would get a message from from a couple friends, but also I would get messaged by somebody who I have a working relationship with, and he was always very insistent that that my takes about Vosh are not good, and that I should stop criticizing Vosh because I'm disuniting the left, and that I should stop, that I should stop criticizing. He was the same person would say I should stop criticizing Joe Biden because he sucks, because we needed him to beat Trump or something. So, it's me trying to not get those emails. What about Caleb Maupin? I don't know. Everything I know about Caleb Maupin comes from freaking, what's it called? It comes from freaking Thoughts on videos. I did a poster for a fundraiser stream and the streamer posted it and it got 400 likes, almost 200 retweets. None of them are going to result in work for me, but I'm trying to be optimistic. Hey, that's awesome though. You should reply to your tweet saying, hey, I'm a concept artist. If you want to pay me to draw things, here's my website. So that's what's it called? That's my drama statement, because like I also don't like to needlessly rock the boat, but I do think that the Young Turks in particular definitely need to have some things said. Yeah. Feeling good. All right, let's we got next on the list. Do you hear about Nikki Ashton getting shade thrown at her for supporting releasing the Huawei lady? It's dumb, especially because it's complicated by how one of the organizers of the event she was going to attend is apparently a Uyghur genocide denier. Ooh. Yeah, probably Nikki Ashton should have thought that one out a little bit better. I don't know. What's it called? This is the kind of shit we would have been dealing with if Nikki Ashton had been made leader of the party. I don't know how to, okay, so for those who don't know, I think that her name is Minghua Wei, something like that. Anyways, she's like one of the upper executives at Huawei, which is a huge Chinese corporation that makes cell phones. And when she was in Canada the Canadian government arrested her kind of at the behest of Donald Trump. And there was this whole fight about this tug-of-war because Donald Trump was basically threatening sanctions against the Canadian economy if we didn't hand her over to the United States. And China started arresting Canadian nationals that were in China on trumped-up drug charges, basically threatening to kill them if Canada didn't hand her back to China, didn't let her go. And Canada was like stuck in the middle between these two positions. And yeah, I don't know what's it called. I do imagine that given that Joe Biden's probably not going to have as belligerent a stance against China as Trump did, that it would be probably smart to just send her back to prevent people from getting killed. But yeah. And Nikki Ashton is a NDP politician for Manitoba, for part of Manitoba, I should say. And she has run for leader of the New Democrats like twice now. She never wins. She never comes even close because the NDP is full of sad centrists. And she's like the one that like wants... Like, she basically has explicitly said that she wants to be like the Jeremy Corbyn for Canada. She did some pretty badass stuff. She ran for prime minister, or ran for leader of the party, while pregnant with twins. Which is pretty cool. And it didn't really stop her that much. She had one debate she participated in via Skype because she was too pregnant to fly at that point. But besides that, it was pretty cool. Has any nation state actually taken serious the idea of not cooperating with terrorists and kidnappers? More so after 9/11. What do I want to do this person? Which person? Nikki Ashton or Ming Hua Wei? At this point, I don't know what crimes Ming Hua Wei even did to warrant arresting her. So it sounds to me like, I mean, it'd be great to just arrest all billionaires, but unless she like did a thing that I don't know about, send her back to China. It sounds like. Yes, I'm not going to repeat what I just said on stream for one person. But yes, the Canada was being threatened that they wanted to extradite this prisoner to the U.S., despite the fact that she didn't do any crimes. Anyways. It's kind of fucked up that they did that, that's for sure. It was not a great situation for the government to be in. This is a Mia question. Let's see. Was Japan the only fascist country that wasn't built around a single charismatic dictator? Like, I mean, to an extent, I have a feeling that it's kind of, I have this like, depending upon what your definition of fascism is, I have a feeling that like Japan gets kind of roped into it because they were part of the Axis. But like while like Japan's government was militaristic and was most definitely imperialistic, calling it fascist, I don't know. Like I could definitely be swayed. I could definitely be argued that it was a fascist government, but I don't know, because like the thing is like finding a definition of fascism. Fascism's just like a weird. It's a weird thing to define, and if you define it too broadly, then any dictatorship, any militaristic government is fascist. But that subtracts from the idea of like what was this phenomenon that was going on in the 1930s in Germany and Italy specifically, that we have to like look for patterns of it being like, of it repeating. And like Japan Japan under like Emperor Showa, I would have to read some books to figure out. Like I don't remember. Like I mean, like they did horrible shit. Like I'm not. Like the thing is like people are going to interpret this as me saying that, like because I said they weren't fascist, that means they were good actually. When like no, they did horrible fucking things, like the rape of Nanjing and like, the like invasion of like all of the Pacific countries and such is pretty fucking horrible. And yeah, Japan to this day still has a lot of issues with racism. Did they do the concentration camps and the attempted like purging of non-Japanese people from the Japanese islands? I don't know. But then again, you have to say like, oh, did Italy do that? And it's like, well, and so like you have to like. Again, it comes down to the fact that we don't have a good definition of a good definition of fascism, as you've seen in the discourse in the last little while. That fascism is a kind of tough to understand thing, and yeah. They did I mean, they did have like Chifu and stuff like that, so it's not all that bad, or it's not that far off the definition. So, this is also speaking to my like not knowing a super huge amount about World War II and Japan in particular. Oh boy. All right. I think someone asked what I thought about Antifa, and I thought Antifa was good and cool. Are Antifa terrorists? Oh, fuck no. Terrorism is another word that we also don't have a great definition of. Like what's it called? The terrorist always seems to be a word for soldier that I don't like or like what's it called, like commando I don't like, or paramilitary troop that I don't like, as opposed to paramilitary troop you do like, then they're rebels or freedom fighters or something like that. So I don't know. Terrorism's a horrible word to use. Like the National Security Dictionary definition of terrorism is like 4 pages long, because they have to do a lot of work to define it in a way so that they can say that brown people are terrorists, but white people tend to not be terrorists. And that's like them, like how they try to define like what happened to like what the Israelis do to Palestinians, and why that's not terrorism, but what like what Palestinians do to defend their homeland is terrorism. That kind of stuff. Trump 2020? Oh well, that's cute. It's cute that you think that they what's it called? It's a thing. It's already. Can you please explain why people keep calling Hitler communist and leftist? That's actually a fun question. So first of all, it's a snarl. It's a snarl thing. Like it is an attempt to say no you, because if you like, basically, if you do no research into history and don't understand context at all, you do have to point out. All you have to do is point out that the name of the Nazi Party was technically the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany or something like that. Which, like, okay, sure, that is a word that was used, and what I would say to that is, first of all, that it belies, it doesn't understand the historical context in which that name was derived. It doesn't understand, and it takes that title and stretches it to be an essentializing identity for like a thing that doesn't like that in practice was anything but socialism. So the reason why the Nazi Party got its name, Nazi or National Socialists, is because of the term socialism at the time. Keep in mind that this was pre-Cold War, so socialism wasn't this, like, you know, scary word that we use to attack people who want healthcare and say that they're bad. Instead, it was basically like the new political wave. There was a pretty strong idea in the 1930s that, you know, at some point on a long enough timeline, socialism's what's coming for us. And the National Socialists started without Hitler as a party that was essentially like, they called itself socialist because it was basically like run by, like, you know, some union people, and it had some people in the party like Strasser, for example, who were sort of like, they did have some like kind of socialist ideas that were like mixed with like these really weird racist ideas. Hey, Art Explains. Hey, Alex. Or sorry, Xander. Hello. You did a very good video on the Toba theory earlier today that I really enjoyed. So basically they named this party the National Socialist Party because they had, like, you know, it was a mix of these different things. But then when Hitler joined and the Nazis actually came to power, the things that they did involved rising corporate power, racial, like what's it called, racial destruction of people and everything that they owned. Then they also banned unions and killed all the communists. And I do have to say, banning unions and killing communists are not the typical actions of socialists. Just gonna put it out there. And also working very intensely with like German megacorps. Also, not a super socialist thing to do. So a lot of the times when people try to say that like the Nazis were socialists, it's because of the title that was given to this party that was already an anachronism by the time it had come to power, and also did in action basically the opposite of everything a socialist would do. Well, there you go. What's the difference between oh, that's not for me. Left, right, or don't care. I consider myself on the veriest of far lefts. I am the leftistest. I am an anarchist. I'm so for equality, I don't even want governments. They wanted socialism for the exclusive group of the German nation. Yeah, that's the other thing, too. What kind of anarchist? Probably call myself an anarcho-communist. There you go. That's, like, I have the flag and everything. I would hang it up, but now that I know I'm moving in a month, I guess I probably don't need to. There's like a handful of stuff behind me that's like, I'm going to unpack this someday now that I've moved to this new place in London. And now that I'm moving to this house, I'm like, well, I guess I just got to put that back in the box. I'm moving again. Yes, I bought a house a few weeks ago, and I'm moving into it soon. Moving into it in February, probably. At least you can take that lamp with you now. Mm-hmm. Betty wants to come to my house someday. Sure thing. Yeah, as soon as this pandemic is like, freed us from this eternal indoors, then I would be more than happy to have you come. We even will have a spare bedroom, so that'll be nice. Hey, Blazeshard5426, thank you for subscribing. Ooh, keeping me keep. Thank you for that Jeff Bezos money, keeping me keeping me going. Why are there so few anarchists in history departments? I feel like I've said this a few times, and this is like the interesting thing. So history, the way that it's taught in like undergrad, or so the way that it's taught in like high school, like below university, it's taught to be very nationalistic, very much designed to make you patriotic and think that your country is not horrible. And so it has a very state-centric, very right-wing bend to it. And so very few people... Hey, Sam Jewell, thank you for following. Welcome to York Gang. So very few people actually get to... very few, like, left-wing people can tolerate it long enough to actually go to university for it. The only reason why I, like, stuck with history was because I experienced more history firsthand by going on road trips with my family. Like, my experience of, like, learning about the past comes from, like, seeing Los Alamos and the Gettysburg battlefield and things like that, and that's what kind of got me into it. While, like, the way history class is taught is just terrible. So then what happens is you become like this. A lot of people who graduate and did really well in history in high school can be like, very patriotic, very, tend to be like conservative leaning students. Then they go to university and they decide to major in history. And in their first year, they're confronted with like actual history, and it makes their country look bad because countries are in general a bad thing. And they get really upset, complain about liberal professors, and they either stick through it by taking all of the military history classes that are hosted by the right-wing professors, or, hey, thank you for the bits, Sander.
Here are some Bezos bucks, TM.
Thank you. So they either stick with it by just taking all the military and political history courses, which tend to have the more conservative professors, and then they just don't take any of, like, the history of gender, history of race, decolonization, those kinds of things. Or they change their opinion, or they change majors typically to political science. And that's why, like, always be wary of the people who got the double major in history and political science, because it's always like, oh, what are you about? I mean, I took some political science courses, so you're not all lost, but So anarchists, and so like when you get into higher education, a lot of the grad students, because grad students are people who got really into the academic stuff, like, you don't last very long in grad school if you're like, we deal with them. Like, we've had grad students who are like, oh, I forgot that there were women in history. The one person I know who did that got kicked out of the program. So, not because of that, but because of other, like, creepy shit that he did. But, like, the right-wing grad students, they just keep to themselves. And, like, I remembered, because, like, basically, from what I remember in my, like, grad school department, is that, like, my grad school was full of creepy, or no, my grad program, because the history department that I was a grad student in was very focused on Canadian military history. So there was, like, one professor who was an expert in Canadian military history during World War I, and he had tons of grad students, and they all kind of kept to themselves. They all had their own little thing. So, and then, I don't know, I find that, grad school departments tend to have a lot of just kind of liberals, because they're people who are, fairly intellectual, but they also are, not by a rule, but by and large, there's a lot of privilege there, because they were able to, take a history degree in undergrad and then push that to go to grad school. So I found that I was an anarchist who was surrounded by a lot of liberals. So there's that. I used to get in a lot of shit because I was basically the socialist anarchist in all of the graduate seminars, but it went really well. Military history seems kind of jingoistic to me. Not really. Like, the best military history happening right now is military history that also is aware of all of the other things that I was talking about that are that talk about gender and race in military stuff. But yeah, the people who just want to draw maps with little lines and boxes and stuff like that, like those, like there's not that many of those people left, and they're all very old, and just like they're not treading any new ground, so nothing really interesting is coming out of them. My school was full of super leftists. Oh, that's fun. Was that York? That sounds like York. Was the graduate program a sausage fest, male dominated? Actually, no. I mean, compared to like, because like there's a lot of dudes in history departments in the undergrad, but like my cohort of PhD students when I first showed up, I think there were like I think there was only like 2 guys, and then I think there was like 5 or 6 women. So it's a it was pretty solid group of people. And there's some very, very smart, intelligent people who are in my program that I respect their work very intently. Do you consider Indian status cards in Canada a form of apartheid? I'm also interested in what your view on Indigenous anarchism is. I wish I knew more about Indigenous anarchism, at least in Canada. The status card thing is, I don't know if it's a form of apartheid, because it's not really a thing that's meant to keep... It's a form of identification. Like, I mean, the blood quantum thing, like what's it called? What's called, like, Indian Act status cards and band cards and things like that are full of some problematic assumptions about kinship and belonging within Indigenous cultures. But mostly they're about access to government services. They're not like, or as a form of ID. Because, like, for some nations, you can use it as your passport to cross over the border and things like that. But, like, I don't call it a form of apartheid because it's not like the South African ID cards, which were used to limit where you could go. Indigenous people aren't, like, forced onto the reserves. They're not like Bantustans. They're shitty. They're underfunded. They don't have the things they need. The Trudeau government refuses to, like, even get them off boil water advisories, but, like, they can leave if they want to. It's not a prison. You partly inspired me to go to grad school. Not sure if I should thank you. At this point, like at this kind of period in history, might not be a bad idea to go to grad school right now and sort of ride out the next few years in school, because I imagine the economy is going to take another hit in the nuts soon, so don't be too worried about it. What do you think about Curtis Bott's actions in the pipeline shutdown in Western Canada and the Treehouse? I don't know about that at all, actually. You don't care much about gun control legislation? I mean, I feel like gun control legislation is very much a liberal issue. Like, liberals care about gun control. The left and the right don't. Most left-wing people are, like, fairly in favor of guns. Like, what's it called? The only reason why I think there hasn't been as much right-wing violence around the election as people were expecting is because leftists came to the Black Lives Matter protests with guns and shot back. Like, I'm sure there's some pretty useful gun control legislation that would be useful, like, you know, the kind of like basic things that everybody would be on board with like registration and background checks. But like, you only see like with like liberals, like you only see with like what's his face, Beto O'Rourke and stuff like that, who are actually talking about like, oh, we need to like have like a mandatory gun ban and like things like that. And it's like, oh, no thanks. I wouldn't like the capitalist state to disarm the population. You know, you first. The people can give up their AR-15s when the police give up their armored personnel carriers. Does the pipeline work the other way? Can the algorithm turn sock dems into anarchists? Probably. I mean, it like they're like it definitely what's it called, points in a more like more and more what's it called, extreme position thing, or at least that's how it used to work. I would think though that the reason why the algorithm on YouTube promotes a lot of right-wing voices is because if you've seen through like media pressure and stuff like that, YouTube is much more afraid to like bring the hammer down and do like, you know, disciplinary actions against conservatives. Like, look how the fact they couldn't get rid of what's his name, Steven Crowder. They couldn't ban Steven Crowder. They tried, like, they couldn't, because they knew that Fox News would then be like, YouTube has a liberal bias, blah 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 blah. And so they get to stay up, and like they have the big money Koch brother backers who can buy shit tons of ads for them and stuff like that. While left-wing YouTubers have to beg for money. Don't, like, what's it called? We have to have we're supported entirely by like our, you know, our Patreons and like, you know, what little sponsorships money we can put together and whatnot. And then, you know, if we get shut down, nobody complains for us. No one complains when the communists get kicked off YouTube. When the fascists get kicked off YouTube, then they get like a whole media machine and tons of moneyed interests start pushing to protect them. But yeah. Left Twitch is being supported by the same $20 being passed around on PayPal. This is so true. What's it called? I am patroning so many people who are also patrons of me. And so, yeah, we just pass a lot of the same money around. It's funny. How do you balance between the monopoly of power of the state and the heavy gun ownership? How do you balance? You balance by using the gun ownership to get rid of the monopoly of power of the state. Easy. They say $1 on the left can stay in the community for 100 years. It's perfect. Why would you support background checks for guns? You know that they'll exclude people for prior diagnosis, but not for domestic violence convictions. I mean, I would hope that you would get background checks for things like domestic violence convictions. That's the kinds of things that I would want background checks to exist for. Putting together an article about manufactured consent on the... Your recommendation. I already watched your video on how the internet is ruining politics. You published in September and would like to dig a little deeper. I have a friend who, if you email me, stepbackchannel@gmail.com or Tristan@stepbackhistory.com, send me an email. I can get you in touch with an expert who I interviewed for that video if you're working on an article. Breaking up the U.S., good idea or great idea? The greatest idea. Do I accept Bitcoin donations? I mean, I don't have a wallet. I don't know what Bitcoins are. I don't know how they work, and I don't know what I would do with them. So my answer is probably not. If to be honest, if I got a Bitcoin, if someone tried to give me a Bitcoin donation, I would probably make a wallet just to receive it, and then I would try to find some way to turn it into actual money. I don't. It was like called it's bitcoins, it's imaginary money for libertarians. So I'm okay. I don't know what to do with it. Um. Do I take Dogecoins? It's funny. I actually there was a corner store when I used near where I used to live in Toronto that that did like what's it called? You could buy Dogecoin there, and I was like, I can't believe that like meme turned into like an actual cryptocurrency. I don't even know. Can you turn Bitcoin back into real money? I don't know. Are there people who do that? Is there like an exchange somewhere? I'll give you some Bitcoin and teach you how to use it. Okay. Can you confirm it's step? Try Tristan at stepbackhistory.com. That's a much easier one to hit. It just redirects to that Gmail, but it's an easier one to remember. Yeah. Can buy it, sell it for the current monetary value, but it's a very slow exchange if it's a large amount of money. I doubt it's a large amount of money, but I mean, Benny, if you want to help me figure out how to sell math bucks, then sure, I'll figure it out. I know you've been trying to send me that picture of somebody who put a UKIP sign up by a mosque, but like, I don't know. I don't find it funny. It's just sad, and really, it makes me mad and angry at the person. Did you know that Bitcoin mining is using as much energy as the country of the Czech Republic? Like, man, that's a lot of electricity made to do math for made-up money. Given that a Mormon almost had a GOP president, do we really need to think of them as an oppressed minority? Maybe not, but like they are a religious minority in America, and if you're not Mitt Romney, first of all, Mitt Romney when he was running for president had to downplay his Mormonism pretty hardcore. And on top of that, like, you talk to evangelical Christians in America, they still have issues with the fact that Mitt Romney was a Mormon. And, like, I would guarantee you that there is, that you do experience missed out on opportunities and things because, like, Mormons have to stick with themselves so often. Like, there is definitely, like, negative attitudes towards Mormons in America. They're just so nice about it because their religion commands them to be like some of the most nice and hospitable people in the world. Okay, so the person went out of business for putting up a UKIP thing? Okie dokie. You grew up with All Mormon Town beside your reserve? And what were they like? I mean, they're like pushy with their recruitment and stuff like that. That's for sure. But like, I don't know. Two were the nice people I met. One was really cool. The last one was a dick. Well, there you go. That's a pretty decent ratio. In a video the other day, American Johnson said that a good anarchist education would not be designed to just churn out more doctrine anarchists. Would it be fair to say Anaris kind of fails anarchism in that regard? I guess. And it's been a few months since I read that book now. Somebody asked me what was a good book I read this year, and that was a good book I read this year. And like, I think that like one of the things that you're missing out, 255, is that like Ursula Le Guin did not write Anaris to be the perfect example of an anarchist society, and she like wrote flaws into it. Whether or not those are condemnations of anarchism is a different thing. But like it was just like a fictional, setting she made up. I see Mormons. They're a mixed bag, like all people, but like I don't think they're like, the thing is like I made that Mormonism video years ago because I wanted to talk about what Mormons were without being a dick. Because if you look up Mormonism on YouTube, you're going to find two videos. Mormons who are trying to proselytize, and people who want to be dicks to Mormons because they don't like them or they think that their religion is somehow sillier than other people's religions. And so I wanted to make a video that was like, hey, what if I explain what Mormonism is without being a dick? And I have never heard the end of it. People have been giving me shit for for the crime, the epic crime of not being a dick to Mormons for ages. And that video also included an interview with an anarcho-communist Mormon who had a conversation with me. He sat down with me for like 2 hours to explain how he saw Mormonism and stuff to me. So, I don't know. Mormonism is pretty homophobic. Sure, every religion is. I don't know if like every major religion has quite a bit of homophobia in it. I don't know what makes the Mormons worse than like the Catholics or the Methodists or even like Muslims and Jewish people. Like their religions, they all have homophobia baked into them. Although actually, Christian, what's it called? The Christian Bible actually does have. There is some debate over whether the anti-gay stuff in the Bible is actually a mistranslation, which is actually kind of interesting. Is Buddhism homophobic? Maybe not. I guess there is the Anglicans. The Anglicans had a fucking church schism over whether or not to accept gay people. I don't get why Shevik had to take that job planting trees because he was, like, called up. Anarchism doesn't involve picking what job you do. If I remember correctly, I think it's later in the book that this comes up, but it's because there's a drought. Like a lot of the reasons he leaves the planet to go to the status planets so they can keep doing his research is because he wants to do scientific research, but he keeps being taken away from it because there's like a drought happening, and so they need to call him up to just like do the things to keep the planet from starving. There are definitely Buddhists who are homophobic. I just don't know if I don't think there's anything in Buddhism that is necessarily homophobic in the same way that there's some mistranslated parts of the Bible that a lot of Christians take seriously. Because there's a lot of thoughts that the way that the Bible's actually translated, that a lot of the stuff that's written, that's interpreted as homophobic, actually, if you look at it in the original translation, turns out to actually be a thing against pedophilia. But that's just me. The Dalai Lama himself made a love the sinner, hate the sin statement. True, although the Dalai Lama is not the spokesman of all Buddhism. He's not like the Pope of Buddhism. He is a important person in a specific sect of Buddhism that actually has a hierarchy. He he is the head of like the Tibetan Buddhists, who are a specific sect of Buddhism that actually have like lamas and like these important people who are sort of like a hierarchy. It's very different from a lot of other Buddhists. They're sort of their own thing, actually. Should people not be able to refuse to work even if it's vital? I don't know. I have a feeling that there's way. I feel like I stretch to think that there's going to be a situation where somebody refuses to work even if it's like, you know, there's a drought happening and people are starving and like all those kinds of things. I feel like, and like, we need you to help us plant crops, and they're like, no, I just want to vibe and play Xbox. Like, I don't know. It's true, the Catholic thing about like the Catholics take the part of the Bible that says that pedophilia is bad, translate it into the gays are bad, and now that like, oh no, it's actually pedophilia that's bad, then they're looking at all the priests just being like, uh-oh. Someone told us pedophilia was bad. I would like to see a video on Bosnian and Albanian Muslim history, as well as a video on the Nizari sect of Islam. I actually think I was going to do that at one point, because when I was working at CCLA, maybe this is a different group of Muslims. There is Ibadi Islam, which I have been interested in making a video about. But thank you for the follow there, semi-classic Star Fox fan. I had a so when I was working at CCLA, one of the people I shared my office with was from Albania, and she was from a Muslim family, because Albania is like 90+% Muslim, and she was she saw some step back videos, and she actually recommended that I do a video on like this sort of European, this like Albanian specific sect of Shia Islam, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. What happens to Shevik if he says no? Is it ever explained? Yes, it is. They basically say something along the lines of like, if you like basically refuse to be a team player, you're not good. Like, no one's going to put you in prison or anything like that, but like, you're not going to, like, people aren't going to want to be friends with you. You're not going to have friends at the lunch counter, and that kind of ostracization is a way to like, you know, that social pressure is the way that they convince people to do things. That kind of stuff. Isn't that Pope critical of neoliberal capitalism? Yeah, Pope Francis has said some pretty dope stuff. Won't lie. Happy to see some leftists that have escaped the liberal anti-gun stuff, because it gives me more examples to throw at one of my friends who's been cascading down the right tunnel. I have a feeling, though, they're like the really anti-gun people on the quote-unquote left have really started to disappear in the last like year or so. All the stuff that was going on with like the Kyle Rittenhouse situation and stuff like that, like, has kind of, I feel like there's a lot fewer people, like, gun control is not a thing that gets talked about all that much anymore. You recently built a bathroom with a pass-through window to deposit things like urine samples. Someone saw small windows to the wall of one room to another and said, "Is this the Catholic confessional?" Oh dear. Forgive me, pooping is a sin now, and so you have to confess right afterwards. So I want to know if there are any Muslim takes on socialism and communism. I enjoy religious takes on leftism. Yeah, the thing is, like, all I can think of is like any like leftism that's happened in like the Middle East and stuff like that has been largely pushed by like secularist movements as well. But there is like Muslim feminism, so like I imagine that there's definitely somebody who's thought of something. I just don't know if it's a thing out there. But like, you know, like there's like ostensibly there's like some socialist stuff in like Nasserism that and like, you know, Baathists had some socialist stuff associated with them, but they were all very secularizing movements. They did it in spite of religious stuff, and in a lot of ways, because of the Cold War, religiosity was sort of used as an anti-communist stance in the Middle East, which has led to there not being really a strong Muslim, like devout Muslim socialist tradition. But I'd be happy to be proven wrong, and to see that there's some like great, devout Muslim socialists who have written about their thing. So that's an interesting question. Oh man, the only issue I've run into is many of my Muslim friends are pretty liberal. Isn't Bernie pro-gun? And the NRA once said that their members in Vermont vote for Bernie once. He refused to back a law that said, and if you think about it, this law does sound a little weird, which is basically they wanted the families of gun violence victims to be allowed to sue gun manufacturers for the death caused by the person who shot the gun. Which, like, that's a new one. Like, if you ran over somebody with your Ford Fiesta, that's like them saying that they would be allowed to sue Ford. And it was a weird law, and Bernie Sanders opposed it. And when he was questioned about it, because like Hillary Clinton tried to use it to attack him, he sort of was like, the needs are different in places like Vermont where there's like no people. And it's like, Bernie wasn't fucking wrong there. It's just that we were in a very different place on gun rights in the United States like 4 years ago than it is today. Yeah, Vermont is a pretty pro-gun state. Even the right wing in Vermont is pretty libertarian leaning. I remembered during the run up to the 2012 election, I went to Vermont, and any Republicans that were there were Ron Paul people. By the way, do you have an opinion on the quality of YouTuber Bad Empanada's historical work? If I remember correctly, Bad Empanada at least has a history. He has some sort of formal education in history, and from what I've been able to pick up of his work, it's pretty good. His the main one that comes to mind to me is the Columbus video, and his Columbus video, his response to Knowing Better was really good. It was really solid. It was good research, and from like the process that he talked about, it sounds like he is pretty well, like he understands historical research. Bro, I just learned Vermont was deep red state until 1992. Yup. Biden is the lesser evil. That is true. He was the lesser evil of, between Trump and Biden. But the lesser of two evils is still pretty evil. Not gonna lie. Before the election, you know who made a video where he argued electing Biden is a good idea because it's easier for socialists to fight neolibs than fight fascists. I have thoughts on that. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of... I mean, in some ways, it's a better argument to have, because at least there are people who are, in the same, moral framework. But, in the end, I feel like you lose a lot of your support, because if you're fighting neoliberals, you're going to end up with, the really, a much harder to stand strong against stuff like how in 2016 I was ostracized for, a good part of a year by some people, because they literally thought I was misogynistic for supporting Bernie Sanders. And you're going to see a lot more of that. It'd be like, I don't like the CIA. And they'll be like, well, the CIA is led by its first black man. So if you oppose the CIA, you're racist. And it's like, what the fuck? But I feel like we've kind of seen through that move a little bit as of late. But, Supermarket in the UK have this thing where you can go in and buy a trolley full of food, then they'll take it all to the food bank. I already answered this one weeks ago. When I asked you about turning World War to a TV series, you said it's too many POV. I already answered that one. Revoting, then just punishing them. I asked why he votes Tory. He believes that. He said that the British people will never support a justice system like that, so he doesn't let it affect how he votes. I mean, people care about different issues. It's a weird to be like, I'm not going to support a good thing because everybody else won't support it, so therefore I don't care. And it's like, well, that's weird. Thoughts on veganism being co-opted by centrists and liberals? I have a feeling that I don't have as good a take on that as a non-vegan as like, I feel like Mexi would probably have a better take on that than I would. She did a video called Why I'm Not Vegan TM, and I think that that might be a good place to go to get a better take than I would be able to give. If I remember, it's pretty good. You should, what's it called? You should check out Mexi. Mexi is a pretty talented person. Her YouTube channel is very good. You should subscribe. And Mexi is, what's it called? She has a pretty good editor, so, you know, there's that. You don't think veganism should be part of any political group? I don't know. I think veganism is a morally righteous position. I'm not a person who, I would say that if I was living to my moral ideal, I would be a vegan. And I really respect people who make that choice for themselves. So, there's that. There's this pragmatic argument that people who are unwilling to practice good social distancing should get the vaccine earlier. What if we give them the vaccine but also slap them with a massive fine so as to create a pervasive incentive for people to not to flout social distancing to get the vaccine? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is, because those kinds of like to me, though, this kind of stuff, like the people who are unwilling to practice social distancing are the ones who are bad, and we need to not encourage their behavior. To me, rings more as like, it's not going to be the Karens who refuse to wear masks who are going to get the vaccine and would get fined under this regime. That idea, what's it called? Like, the idea, like, to me, this seems like a thing that would just end up being a fine on, like, you know, like poor people. Like, if you were to slap a fine on people who got the vaccine first because they refused to social distance, you're going to wind up basically fining poor people, which means that you're just going to say that poor people can't get the vaccine or something. Oh yeah, if we can get that lab-grown meat going, that would be pretty good. Calling veganism moral when when some people have to eat meat for various reasons is kind of a bad take. Maybe. I don't actually know what the situation. I don't know what the situation is with those people. Like, I know that, like, Mexi's talked to me about this a couple of occasions, that I don't know what the conditions are that cause that, but I guess I said, if you can practice veganism, and it is a lot easier than people think it is. Like, what's it called? The whole idea that it's like really hard to get protein or something like that is not really. So if you can be vegan and you practice it, that's, you know, thumbs up. Obviously, if you have like a real like condition that causes you to be incapable of being vegan, I'm not going to be like, you should be vegan. It's amoral not to be. But if you have the choice, if you have the means and the ability, and you know, you're not a moral coward like me, then you should at least consider it. Do whatever it can to be ethical. Yeah. If anything, we need to get that lab-grown meat thing. I think that's the only way we're going to actually, like, fix it, really. But a lot of people that I know who are vegans for, like, political reasons, it's more that they just do not want to participate in the system of animal cruelty that exists today. Do vegans eat honey? No, they do not. Typically, their replacement for honey is agave nectar. And I'll be honest, agave nectar kind of rules. So they're not missing out on much. Some people are allergic or have trouble processing certain types of protein. That'd be the main issue. The main thing I've seen are like with my partner who's already has an eating disorder. Any type of limiting really fucks with them. Yeah. I don't think anybody would argue that somebody should be vegan if like they have a medical condition or some sort of like other condition that means that they can't eat that they have to have animal products in order to survive. I don't think anybody on the planet who is not like unreasonable would say that. Just like what's it called? Yeah. Agave is easier to mix in the tea. It's true. Agave nectar fucking owns. There's a lot of unreasonable vegans. Maybe. I do think, though, that it collectively we're a bit too hard on them. I mean, there are some people who do it like who are like lifestyle vegans and like they're on Instagram and they have all the expensive products and stuff like that. And like, yeah, those people can go fuck themselves. But like, there are, if you can become vegan, there are very good reasons to do it. Like, yeah. It's just like, what's it like saying, like, you know, Have anyone eaten polar bear? I have. When did you go to the Arctic? Where the hell would you get polar bear meat? You must have been up in the territories at some point. Would you live in a world with 8 years of Bernie Sanders presidency? The price is that the only music you have to listen to for the rest of your life was early 2000s ska punk? Shit, yeah. I'll, what's it called? I'll listen to Real Big Fish for the rest of my life if I get 8 years of Bernie Sanders, sure. I'd listen to early 2000s ska punk for free. There you go. Some forms of agave are highly processed and akin to high fructose corn syrup. If you get agave, apparently the darker ones are less processed, but it might be a misconception. I mean, sure, but also maybe if you're trying to reduce your sugar intake, you shouldn't be injecting anything. You shouldn't be having anything, any sort of honey substitute. Because I'll tell you what, secret thing about honey also has a lot of sugar in it. Yeah, what's it called? If I had to listen to early 2000s ska music for the rest of my life, and we got a Bernie Sanders presidency, you'd see me skanking on Inauguration Day. So a lot of vegans say that, but doesn't that imply that they don't value animal lives as much as they claim? Like, would you say it's okay to eat the flesh of people if you needed to stay healthy? Man, no. I have a feeling there is a distinction there. Don't do cannibalism, friends. It's very bad for you. Hey, H. Locust, thank you for following. Welcome to the Art Gang. Eating people is bad for your brain organ. You pointed out several times the medieval Muslim societies were more tolerant than the Christian societies that exist at the same time. Even grading that does jizya put a limit on how tolerant majority Muslim states can be without ignoring parts of their religion? Sure. But, like, all the religions selectively enforce parts of their religion. Like, what's it called? You talk about like the Taifa kingdoms of Al-Andalus. Like that was an area where there was more religious tolerance than any part of the Middle Ages, you could argue. Same with like whatchamacallit, the like in Baghdad. Like, yeah, the whole jizya thing's not perfect, but like also taxes were different back then, and also nobody, like, what's it called? No religion follows all of its rules. None of them, because they're contradictory and most of them make no sense. So like, why give Muslims extra special shit for being way more tolerant than Catholics who did the exact same shit? I mean, look at what's it called? The fucking Spanish Inquisition. You didn't what's it called? You didn't see well, I guess I can't blanket say, but I didn't see much of a Muslim Inquisition where they were trying to root out all of the secret secret Christians and all the secret Jews. Like, I don't know. It's true. If you eat other people, you turn into a Wendigo. You actually, what's it called? You should not eat. You should not eat human meat because it can give you a prion called kuru, which will kill you. It's sort of like mad cow disease, but for people. The Armenian genocide. I mean, the Armenian genocide wasn't like a Muslim what's it called? A Muslim like crackdown, like anti-Christian crackdown. It was a nationalist thing. It was done by the Young Turks, who were an explicitly like secularist group that was anti-religious, that were like against the role of religion in society, that facilitated the genocide of the Armenians. So it's pronounced prion. Sorry. If you eat too much human meat, you'll get a prion that'll fucking kill you. It's like, what's it called? It's like rabies or the other one, or mad cow. They bad. What is the difference if not that you think human lives are more valuable? I don't think there are that many, like, except for like extreme hardcore animal rights people who think that like animal life is like 1-to-1 perfectly equal with human life. Like that's an extreme position. That's an extreme position that, if there are people who hold it, it's not a well thought out position. Besides some fatwas against pagans and early Islamic leaders didn't attack religions unless they revolted, did not pay their taxes, or they needed the money. Yeah, for real. The thing is that the early Islamic Empire wasn't very Muslim. So while the country was like ruled by like a Muslim aristocracy, the vast majority of people who lived under them weren't Muslims and wouldn't be for several centuries. And so by necessity, they had to figure out these kinds of things. So like, I don't know, it's a bit of a, if Lumiru held a position like that, they would consider everybody who's not a vegan a murderer, which I really highly doubt that's their position. My favorite video of History Matters is where Dutch ate their prime minister. I mean, that's legit. The eating of the prime minister is such a weird story. Although if I was Dutch, anytime I had a chance to see the prime minister, I would have a knife and fork on me. By proxy of living in colonial countries, we're all murderers by proxy anyway. Yeah, and like if you have like having that kind of position, like the closest thing I can think to people who hold a position like that are like really hardcore Jains. Um, but like even then, like for example, my body is killing creatures right now endlessly because I have an immune system that's fighting pathogens. Pathogens are basically little creatures. Like depending upon how extreme you want to take that position, you just draw the line at different places. Mayor Pete and Trudeau are basically the same person. Change my mind. I will not, because that is correct. What is alive, anyway? Good question. I have a feeling we're going to find life in the universe, and we're not going to even recognize it as life, because it's going to be like a crystal or something that thinks that we are not going to be able to recognize as life because it's not going to fit all these different categories we invented. And so we're going to be like, oh, well, guess we could use it for fuel or something. Islamic empires were good for their time up until the mid 1700s, so overall pretty good, but don't deserve to be brought back. I mean, fair. They were still, like, dictatorships. They were monarchies. Aaron Dyson are two people at home watching two different Twitch streamers. All right, have a good night, Betty. Thank you for coming around. Nice to see you here. I'm trained in biology. We don't have a solid definition of life and species. It's true. Like, for example, I still find it really weird that that biologists refuse to think that viruses are real. Or viruses, not that they're not real, that they're not alive. When it's like, man, like, if they're not alive, they're alive adjacent. Would you embrace our new crystal overlords if they brought you peace, but also dubstep was the only music allowed? You know what? Whatever. I'd listen to Skrillex for all time for world peace. I am, what's it called? I am okay with that. They're considered to be proto-life. Okay. Good. I always say that, like, diseases are the only species that we celebrate going extinct. And I find that very weird. Hi, how are you? Well, hello, Hector. I am doing good. I'm doing very well, actually. Superman does good. I'm doing well. I had a very reasonable amount of sleep last night, so I'm actually feeling really good because I chronically don't get enough sleep. So I feel awesome. How about the Bernie presidency, but the only music allowed is Gucci Gang? You know what? I would take any of this because, to be honest, I don't listen to music all that much. So these days, like, I'm like, fine. I'm like, you know what? If I had no music, I would just listen to podcasts more. Does Superman do good? I mean, he does good stuff, doesn't he? The thing saying Superman does good, you're doing well. That was a line from 30 Rock. I think it's from like the first episode of 30 Rock. 30 Rock is the only TV show that I have watched all the way through more than once. Do you think the left is growing in America? I'm really hoping and doing my best to talk to people, but a lot of people just kind of get depressed when confronted with how awful our history is. I mean, the thing about the future that makes it unlike history is the future is unwritten. That's what I always talk to people who get depressed about our history and think, oh, well, we can't do any better. And it's like, what are you talking about? Future hasn't happened yet. It could literally be anything. You could turn into anything you want. And I mean, and also just like not with that attitude, are we going to fix anything? But I do think the left is growing in America. It's objectively so. The fact that there are now like the Squad, which is like made up of like probably the only left-wing politicians in federal government right now in America, and like it doubled in size in the 2020 election. That's a good portent. Like, oh my God. Bernie gets 2024, but only if all media is the Joe Rogan experience. Okay, now this one's hard. Ooh. Bernie presidency would be pretty good, but just imagining what society would be like if the only media you could consume was the Joe Rogan experience. Oh boy. As an anarchist, is it okay to watch the X-Files? I feel conflicted for rooting for agents of the state. I mean, the X-Files is fun, so it's fine. They're cops, but they do like no cop stuff, so as long as they don't do cop stuff, it's fine. Joe Rogan is an idiot, correct. I'll take Joe Rogan for some goddamn change. Yeah, okay, it's fair. Bernie presidency, but no dessert. I could do no dessert. Dessert's like, whatever. The fact that also to kind of speak on the thing, the left is growing with like the DSA and stuff like that. So, was the left growing in Germany in 1930? It totally was. That was what scared people into voting for friggin' fascists. Do you believe a shift in the Democratic Party focusing more on ethnic minorities while retaining white working voters is possible? Yes. I mean, I think that one of the things that people don't realize is that the white working class, like, is not that huge. Like, if you want to have a real class analysis of America, you'd have to notice that the working class is much more racially, race, gender, sexuality, immigration status diverse than the other classes in America because of hyper-exploitation. So if you're going... The thing is, the Democrats, if they take the, sort of Nazbol bait and try to make the argument that the only way you can make a left-wing working class coalition is by appealing to, chuds, by appealing to, racist white working class people. First of all, know that there are a lot of white working class people who could be very convinced by tangible, edible change, healthcare and stuff like that everyone could get behind. But also know that you can't just, be the main problem with the left is that they don't let the white working class say the N-word enough. Those people can get fucked, and I know for a fact that the far right is trying to recruit those people. We're gonna be thinking over the next 4 years, we're gonna be dealing with red browning because one of the areas that fascists and the American far right are trying to get into recruiting ground for the far right has been disaffected leftists who have been disaffected by the Bernie situation and everything like that. And so they're trying to see which of those, they're trying to get consciousness raising for the idea of well, what if what if left wing but racist? So they're trying to get those like stupid poll, lefty poll type people. And they are recruiting in those areas. I did an interview yesterday with somebody who studies the American far right, and like this is the kind of new ground they're trying to get into right now. So we do need to acknowledge that we're not going to like tolerate racism in order to save a like white working class that whatever. Like the thing is, like the working class in America in general is a very diverse coalition of people of many different identity groups, and just saying, you white people, you get to say racial slurs, that's how we're going to get you in, is going to alienate everybody else, and allowing like shitty toxic behavior in your space is going to alienate a lot of working class people. So get fucked. What does lefty poll mean? It was the left-wing poll board of 8chan. I think now mostly they're on a subreddit called Stupid Poll. But it's basically like people who post on the internet saying that, hey, what if like left-wing but also shitty and racist? And like, fuck that. The DSA are progressives, but are they really the left? I mean, they're more left than a lot of like American politics has been for a long time. So, thoughts on Hakeem? I think he's I don't know who Hakeem is. I can't say anything because I've never seen any of his stuff. Is Jimmy Dore lefty poll? Well, like the Jimmy Dore is like part of like the sort of like dirtbag left group. These sort of people who are like, oh, like I can be left wing, but I can do tactical slurs, and that's fine. Well, actually, I don't even know if Jimmy Dore is part of that. But like, you know, he was a Tulsi Gabbard supporter, so whatever. Should we be happy about the squad growing if leftist success can lead to a fascist backlash? I mean, if you use that logic, then the left should never win anything ever, because then it will lead to a fascist backlash. Like, you gotta fight for things or else nothing will ever get better. Problem with building a left-wing coalition. Part of building a left-wing coalition is, yeah, you're going to run into people who aren't as left-wing as you want them to be, but, you know, gun to your head, you know, when things actually start, you know, when politics actually hits the ground, they're the only allies you're going to have, so you might as well stick with them. Like, look at how many different leftist tendencies put aside all their bullshit because they were, or didn't, I guess, put aside their bullshit, but it came together to push Bernie Sanders, even if Bernie Sanders wasn't progressive enough and he wasn't good enough on this or that. But at least people were like, nah, this is the thing we got to do. Fuck it. Are you keen for the Fred Hampton movie? I did not know there was going to be a Fred Hampton movie. Who's making it? It really depends a lot on who's making it. U.S. should normalize prosecuting former president. That's the kind of thing they do in banana republics. Thoughts on that take? If you don't prosecute former presidents, you are setting the precedent that that presidents are above the law. And if there is one rule about democratic countries, is that nobody, not even the president, is above the law. To say that you can just get away with crimes because you're the president has basically said that whoever is in the White House is an autocrat and they can do whatever they want. Which is like, yeah, fuck that. Yeah, Jimmy Dore is kind of an idiot. I won't lie. He doesn't know shit about shit. And, I mean, when you're a left-wing person but you don't know very much, you tend to support people like Tulsi Gabbard, so, yeah. I got a leftist friend who does the whole I'm using these slurs ironically. It's really frustrating. He's luckily not a total asshole, and he actually likes to talk to people if they're uncomfortable before he says anything. But I still told him that's pretty fucked. I mean, yeah, it is kind of... It's just like we're not going to... What's it called? We're not going to be friends if we're going to use... Like, the working class is a wide and diverse group of people who come from a lot of different backgrounds. And using language that has been used for decades, centuries even, to dehumanize them and call these people less than human and try to otherize them and make them, like, not part of our in-group, that sucks. And... even though it doesn't affect you, because you're a privileged person who doesn't have to worry about that shit, it does affect them. But what if President Tom Cotton tells his Justice Department to go after Biden in 2025? I mean, that's like, what's it called? If they go after Biden for making up, like, for doing crimes that aren't real... that's a different thing. That is Banana Republic shit. But prosecuting people for crimes that they actually did, that's not a thing. That's just the justice system. But just saying you can't... If the president is not allowed to do all the crimes that they want, if the president's just not allowed to blanket do crimes, then we're a Banana Republic, is one of the most, like, singular, dumbass, like, pants-on-head stupid reasoning I've ever heard. Like, there's a difference between, like, a kangaroo court set up by, like, a fascist president who's trying to, who's doing made-up charges to try and charge the former president. Yeah, that's fucking Banana Republic dictator shit and should be stopped. But to say, oh, man, the president did a whole lot of corrupt, illegal shit while he was president... better do nothing about that that's so dumb. It will be David Duke because that's the country I live in. Civil War week by week, that might be, like, you might think that's the case. I literally did an interview with a person who studies the far right yesterday, and we talked a little bit about David Duke, and from what I've heard, the far right kind of thinks he's a joke now. He's kind of a weird health nut now, and people don't really take him all that seriously anymore. He's sort of like a weird old man that's like a representative of a bygone era of the American far right. Are there any international elections that I'm looking at? At the moment, no. I don't know of any elections that are on the horizon that I'm particularly interested in right now. The only thing that's coming to mind is there's some like rumblings that the UK might have an election in the next year. Like that Boris Johnson's always just at the edge of resigning for some reason that I don't understand. I imagine that the Brexit fallout will cause quite a bit of a shitstorm in the UK next year. But also, like, there's been... the rumor mill's been running for a long time that the Liberals might do that too here. Because the Liberals, their COVID response is getting very positively received. And so they're thinking that Trudeau, to secure a majority government, might do an election soon before the pandemic's over. So that... he can secure a liberal majority government before people forget about the pandemic and start pointing out all of the crimes that the Trudeau government has been doing. But that's still all just rumor. Will you take any interest in the French presidential election of 2022? Not that my dumbass country really matters, mind you. Maybe. Is Mélenchon running again? Is Marine Le Pen running again? I imagine she is. Is this all going to come down to, like, is it looking like it's shaping up like last time, where it's like everyone thinks they have to vote for the right-wing conservative to avoid literal, like, Holocaust denier from becoming president? Like what happened last time? You doubt Le Pen is not going to run? Okay. Yeah, I was about to say, Le Pen's going to be running until she's like 1,000 years old. But, if it's going to be another situation where it's like, oh, we all have to vote for fucking Macron because he's fucking, what's it called? French Buttigieg, because if we don't, then you vote for, like, Marine Le Pen. Oh, man. If there's ever a French presidential election where there isn't the fucking, like, neo-Nazi party threatening to become president again, then I would be much more excited about the French elections. But I don't know. Mélenchon didn't really do super great in the last election. But what other options does the French socialists have? I guess there's like the actual, like, what's it called? Francois Hollande's party. I can't remember what it's called right now, but I don't know who is running on that party anymore, or even if that party is even that much of a real, like, if it's even that left wing. I don't know. Even if Boris steps down, why the fuck would the Tories who control Parliament call an election? I guess that's fair. It just would be really weird for them to choose a new prime minister and not have an election soon afterwards, because it would mean they have no legitimacy. Doesn't mean they'd actually do it, but it would be kind of unprecedented if they didn't. Oh man, how is it that we're at 8:45 or 8:42 already? That's bananas. Yeah. Also, people here are kind of tired of elections. That's true too. Plus, didn't you say that French election's not till 2022? That's still a while. That's still a ways away. I don't really know what's going to go on in France. Australia has changed their prime minister without elections many times. That's true. But also, let's see. Mélenchon calls out for Fabien Roussel, national security for the French Communist Party, to ally with his party in dominable France for the 2022 presidential. Here we go. Man, that'd be nice. Mélenchon is also like he's kind of a fucking funky looking dude, isn't he? It'd be kind of cool to see the French president look like. Oh no, he's actually pretty. For some reason, I thought he looked like an old gargoyle, but he doesn't. He's actually. He's got some sexy grandpa energy. I'll show you. So this is the leader of the French left wing, basically. I mean, like, what's it called? That's some sexy grandpa vibes. That guy, I could see that being president of France. They botched the pandemic response, given what happened to Trump. Indicator of calling election very, very bad. Yeah, they probably wouldn't. But also, if Boris Johnson were to resign right now, it'd be very, very bad for the Tories. What might happen more is that they'll wait for Boris Johnson. They'll wait for the new year, and when Brexit turns out to be an absolute fucking nightmare next month. When you finally wake up from the long, dancing around, and you actually have to deal with Brexit really being a real thing in January, and you realize your entire economy is collapsing, and your life is like Britain is turning into a way worse off country, then what might happen is they might just make Boris the sacrificial lamb for that, and then they might have an election. I don't know. It is true that prime ministers aren't elected. This is true. The thing about elections, though, is that changing prime ministers without having an election, like, if you are an unelected prime minister, a lot of the time there's this thought that they can choose not to listen to it. This is purely a norm more than anything else. But there's this idea that your election, that your rule is not exactly all that legitimate, and that you probably want to have an election to basically legitimize your government. That's basically it. And yeah, the other thing too is that the Labour Party right now is a mess. Like, what's his name? Fucking, I don't remember who's the leader of the Labour Party anymore, but he's fucking up. He's like fucking the sheets. They kicked, Keir Starmer Keir Starmer like is tearing his party apart. Didn't they recently kick Jeremy Corbyn out of the Labour Party? Like, yeah, like. Maybe it'd be so bad on both ends. There's like a secret Lib Dem victory. Everyone's dream. Prime Minister... What the fuck was her name? She had a very British name. Is that... Joe something? Joe Swinson, although I don't think she's leader of the party anymore. I think Joe Swinson. I think they chose a different leader in 2020, so that's not the leader of the Lib Dems anymore. But I just remember that being a whole thing. Sounds like a fake name. All British names sound like they're fake. Hello, my name is Reginald Fappybottom III. I am the Lord of North Southampton, and no, sorry, I'm from North Southamptonshire. Sir Snapdragon McFisticuffs. There you go. Have you ever thought about doing more collabs with Radical Reviewer or even collaborating with American Johnson or Second Thought? It's come up. American Johnson and I were going to do a video together, but it never formulated where we were going to do some sort of joke video about Boris Johnson as part of like the Johnson Committee. But that never came through because we live on opposite sides of the planet, and it's really hard to talk to. It's hard to talk to him because when I'm going to bed, it's when he's getting up in the morning, and vice versa. So it's actually like really hard to coordinate stuff with him. Like I did an interview with him once for my video about socialism and left unity, and I had to interview him at like 8:30 in the morning or something like that because to get time that we could both hit. Second Thought or JT Chapman, that sounds more likely. He's trying to work with more leftist creators, and some people have floated my name to him, and the two of us are, I wouldn't say friends, but we're at least like, acquainted with each other. So I could see that happening. Our election dates are only governed by norms. Do you think they would have canceled the general election if it was during a pandemic? Maybe. Any idea of when your History of Labor Unions video will be coming out? I've thought about it a little bit, and I've kind of turned into like I've like kind of put together something that's a thought of like a series on American labor history, because there's like a bunch of different stories that I wanted to hit, and then I was like, oh shit, like I could talk for like an hour about this, and I could talk for an hour about this, and so what I'm thinking of is I have it on my list of like clusters to try out. And so if when this series it's like one of my like series is, and right now I'm kind of doing like the white power movement series, and then after that's done I have to think about whether I want to do the labor history series or if I want to do a video on or if I want to do a series that's just called Dark America, which is about like really like dark stories in American history. And so I'd have to think about which of those I'd want to crack into, and I don't know which one I would do. But it's going to be probably I mean, at that point, I probably won't be done. Just looking at my list of the videos I have for that, for this white power series thing. At the moment, the militia movement series has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more videos left in it, so it could be yeah, that could be the springtime by the time I get through all those. So when his other anarchist followers tried to explain stuff to Steve Shives, he said, "So we all live in little self-governing villages. Sorry, I like cities. What should you say to him next time?" That you can have self-governing neighborhoods in cities. They did it through all the Middle Ages. Cities don't need to have centralized governments in order to function, or if they do, they don't have to be that powerful. You can have neighborhoods and stuff like that run themselves and coordinate on city structures and things like that. There's never not going to be cities. People gravitate that way ever since we figured out how to make more food than we can eat. So, Hey, thank you for the subscriptions, AnyStreams. Thank you. You're keeping money in my pocket so that I can pay for bills. And who is this? Heckin' Delaria, thank you for following. Welcome to the Orc Gang. I was wondering about the point you made in your most recent Tristan Won't Shut Up video about the working class would wage a financial revolution through index funds. I was wondering if you could elaborate about that. Specifically, the thing I said in that video was that index fund, if we were to build a capital fund, because the way that our society works, our capitalist society isn't really run by individual owners who own factories anymore. So we're not really going to have a classical Marxist idea that will take over the economy by occupying all of the factories. Now the capitalist government is run very much by corporations and banks and things like that. And so, see you later, Xander. So now, if you really want to own the means of production, you gotta start getting into finance and stuff. And a lot of the ways that financial capital keeps control over our lives is through financial services that we rely on to run our society. Things like loans, things like credit, and bank accounts and things like that. And so if we were able to start a leftist, something kind of like a credit union but a bit bigger and more explicitly socialist, so that you could have things like debit cards and credit cards that don't charge interest, or mortgages that don't charge interest, and things, and also some investments in an index fund, so that money that's put aside could grow into this really large capital fund that we would make money off of, and then could be voted on how to spend it and do things like buy public housing or build public housing and those kinds of things, just using the money we've saved up. That's sort of the thing that I'm thinking of doing. What sort of terrible things did Carter do? I mean, just off the top of my head, he was the president during the Volcker tenure of the Federal Reserve, which is essentially Paul Volcker is basically the head of the Federal Reserve that's most responsible for killing organized labor in America. So there's that. Financialization makes capitalism even more unstable. That is true. But it also means that the economy is largely up for sale. And so, if you were to if we were to use a capital fund, if you were able to raise a bunch of money You could just use it for buying corporations and then turning them into whatever you want to turn them into. Like, I feel like it's a kind of way of taking over the economy, or at least doing some things that would make our economy run better that the government just largely doesn't do anymore, because we're kind of slowly turning into a like, neoliberalism is sort of just turning into anarcho-capitalism on a long enough timeline, and so someday we'll end up being in that kind of situation. But in anarcho-capital, if we're moving towards anarcho-capitalism, then that means if we just buy up all the means of production, then we can distribute it however we want. How would you respond to the sorts of arguments that basically having to do or endorse awful things in order to get good things done? I mean, there's some truth to it, depending upon what kind of things you're into. But for the most part, like, the kinds of compromises you end up making will turn you into people like Bernie Sanders or Jeremy Corbyn. But, like, to use it to excuse people like, for example, like Obama, who had no interest in doing anything resembling like left-wing praxis, that's different. So it really depends on a lot of other, like, there is a level where you're not doing it. You're just being a neoliberal at some point. Capitalism without a central bank or even a state wouldn't even happen. It wouldn't make any sense. Without a military to force the property to belong to fewer and fewer people, there would be no capitalism. Capitalism requires violence to survive. Like, without violence, without the state providing violence for you, what's to stop people from just what's it called? What's to stop people from just living in houses, like, just what's it called, squatting in houses and taking over things? Like, I guess there's like private security and stuff like that, but that's not going to be overwhelming enough to do what you want to do. Could you review this picture of a carrot? It looks like a carrot to me. It's quite the carrot you got there. All right. Why are the pro-capitalism parties pushing to destroy the UK economy? It's a good question. I feel like Boris Johnson is a real racist ideologue who is really pissing off, because, like, a lot of the real capitalists, they don't want Brexit to happen. The people who want Brexit to happen, I feel like, are the actual racists, and they're big on, they just want to do a racism more than they want to do a capitalism. Because I don't think anybody in the UK stands to gain anything economically by Brexit happening. It's going to be a fucking disaster. Okay. Well, did people hate Jamie because she's a woman, or because they just want Bernie Sanders as captain? Nice try. I already didn't respond to that question 2 times. Okay, we are at 9 o'clock. It is time for us to go raid somebody. We've had a good run. On Friday, I'll be streaming, so look forward to that. Should we raid left? Yeah, let's raid left flank vets. Chelsea Manning's playing video games, which is like not really like what the kind of going. I want to go from talking about politics to more talking about politics. So, left flank vets. I've been interested in them. So, anyways, friends, take care of yourselves and each other. Be kind. Those kinds of things. Cheers.